It's the last game at the bowling stadium, and a bunch of mercenaries take over the stadium and hold everyone hostage. And their aim is to reveal someone who's in witness protection, who they know is at the game. So they lock the stadium down, lock everyone in, and basically say, 35,000 souls for one. Tell us where he is. And at that game, we have Dave Bautista plays Michael Knox, who is taking his niece to the game, and they get caught up in the trouble, and he's the only guy who can save the day. Final Score is a big action film, and everything about it is on this huge scale. So you're in the stadium where there's like 35,000 people at all times, and you've got all the chaos and everything around it. So it was very, so there is a lot of spectacle, and there's a lot of things to kind of wrangle as a filmmaker, I think, kind of putting those things together. But where it works best, I think, is when we started this film, we kind of had free reign of the stadium, and because of the way the film was put together at kind of high speed, essentially, it was like we had this really hard deadline. Like the hard deadline was they're going to blow up the stadium on this date, and if you want to incorporate that demolition into the movie and make your movie around it, you have to do it before that date. So it was this really hard deadline that we were all working into, and it kind of forced us to in a way, we had to kind of be really creative and embracing of the elements we had, which is, and the main element was the stadium. So one of the first things we did I remember with the writers, I went around there with the Lynch brothers and Jonathan Frank, and we looked around and just seeing it for the first time and seeing the potential of the roof space, the stands, all the different areas in what is like an incredible building. It was like that's what developed into creating the set pieces. So it was like, wouldn't it be cool if we drove a motorcycle off this roof and jumped across the stands, And so those kind of things developed alongside the film, and it was really nice from a kind of creative process to include things like that. At the heart of the film, the thing that I always like, more than action, more than anything, and the thing that I think makes a good movie personally is if the film's got a heart, right? If it's not just about explosions and noise, gunfire fights, anything like that. It's about like what's at the heart of the characters and what are the characters dealing with. And Final Score, it's dealing with a very it's like a very human condition, a very and something. It's at the center of it all. It's about sacrifice and grief. It's about Dave Bautista's best friend has died, the father of the child that he takes to the stadium, and really this extraordinary situation forces them into a position where they're confronting that and they're dealing with that and they're having to face that and hopefully come to terms with it and get over it. And that's really what the center of the film is, and the thing that I kind of responded to most really is that human story in the center of all the madness. It's not the first time that I've worked with Dave. I actually worked with Dave on a film called Heist a couple of years ago, and he was great. He was amazing, but he was a supporting character in that movie. But he did so well, and he brought so much to it, and personally impressed me no end. And I think people doubt Dave because he used to be a wrestler, and because of his past, they kind of look at him and really he's a serious actor, and he's working hard at that craft. And even back, this is going like 2 years back, shooting the last movie I did with him. He showed all kinds of untapped potential. I thought that he could easily lead a film, but he hadn't really been given the opportunity. So when it came to casting Final Score, it became very interesting talking of the idea of Dave leading it, and it's a very different role for Dave. Like the one thing that I kind of found that I put a lot of kind of that I was very conscious of. The one thing I was really conscious of was Dave has played villains, quite a lot of villains, and in my last film he played a villain, and it's quite kind of, he's got the physique obviously to play that role, and you kind of quickly come to that assumption. But in this film, he's not playing that. He's playing the good guy. He's playing the guy we're rooting for, the guy we're with, and I think I think going in, it was like the secret of making that work, and what has worked really well is because I knew Dave, and I know he's a big bear, he's a big friendly guy who smiles, laughs and plays. It's like bringing out that side of him, because that's the kind of paternal, attractive side that I think works really well with the central relationship with the girl character that he's looking after. I think it was a case of bringing that out and making him the hero. Pierce Brosnan was an absolute darling, and from we sent him the script, and we'd from the first phone call with him, he was totally he totally got the character, totally got what it was all about, and was just a delight to work with. And it was and he you know, he's very chilled, but he takes it very seriously. And one thing that he was very particular about, that he really wanted to, and I wanted him to get right too, was the Russian accent, because he plays this Russian character, and he was very specific about getting the Russian side of it right. So he worked very closely with a Russian translator, a friend of his, who was on set every day, and every nuance of his dialogue, he made sure he got right and really did well. But it made it. He really got into the character, I think, and I think with Pierce, it's a character we've never seen Pierce really play before. You know, not really. And I think, yeah, he's going to surprise a lot of people with the way he kind of looks and sounds. It's kind of like he's totally transformed, and it's completely what the film needs and wants, because he's this character who's staying hidden, who's supposed to be hidden away, this mysterious character with this very interesting past, and he looks and sounds the part. He's fantastic. Ray is he is brilliant. He's an intense guy, and he totally got into it, and I found responded best when in a way he kind of got into kind of method in a way, and he always responded best. I kind of like would tease him and say things and like purposefully aggravate him sometimes to get to direct the performance with him, because it was almost like a theatrical thing where we were shooting in such a way, because again we're really in the stadium. It was really happening. It was kind of, and because his scenes take place in this kind of almost real-time way, we were shooting a lot of things back to back and a lot of things in a kind of live environment, and he totally thrived doing that. And it was like, and I found it a lot of fun to be able to kind of push different buttons with Ray and play with his performance like that. And I know that he at times was like, I didn't know where Ray stopped and Arcady started, and vice versa, so he's screaming at the character, and then I scream something at me, he screams at me, and it's like, oh, which one's shouting at me? But he totally brought this character to life on screen, and it was and yeah, I love everything he did with it. It was amazing, and it was it was almost like very it was almost like he was doing it on stage. It was fantastic. The sheer size of the stadium kind of made those kind of things restrictive. Do you know what I mean? You can't, we kind of had to be very clever with how we shot the film, and what that usually involved was like foreground elements, like designing shots where foreground elements that involve real people, and then implementing it with extras that had been dotted around and cut out to fill out the rest of the stadium, and some 3D work of putting people in distant seats and the rest of it. And there was about 700 or 800 shots in the film that required that kind of work. So it was very, in terms of making the film, it was like a jigsaw puzzle, really. Like you're taking this bit and that bit, and you have to kind of imagine there's that bit behind it, So it was a challenge. But what's nice now is, like, as the film's completed, it's strange how it's kind of brought to life, and through the process of making the film, at each step it really makes such a difference seeing it kind of come together and seeing all those things come alive. Having them run the stadium was completely essential in a way to make the film work and to complete the film in the way we needed. And in terms of planning it, what was also good is because we were practically living there, we could kind of go off and plan certain set pieces in a lot of detail. You know, we weren't waiting for stages to be built. We weren't it was like we were totally embracing what was there and making something out of it. So what was great is we could, like at night, for example, myself and the writers, we could go down to the stunt team. The stunt team had a whole floor, which used to be the dining area, the main dining area in the West Stand. So we'd go down to the stunt department, meet with Pete, our stunt coordinator, and then we'd kind of go up to the rooftop and plan out exactly how to do it and try a few things out with the boys. And when we'd work that out, then I would go up there with the storyboard artist and we would plot out exactly what needs to be shot, because it's one thing kind of coming up with a sequence, but obviously then it's a totally other thing of like how to shoot it and how we do that. So it was very heavily storyboarded in the end, and I think, and it was kind of essential because really a film like this is all those pieces of, you know, capturing pieces of real action and capturing those moments and then sewing them back together again. And I think it's quite, you know, one of the things I found with it is I've never wrangled such a huge thing before, and and you've got to kind of keep on top of how everything's going to fit together to make sure it will fit together, because ultimately that's the sequence, right? Like, as a director, it's really exciting to be able to say you can really blow this building up, because normally like you're pretending, you know, you're putting explosions over stuff and like putting a bit of like foamy nonsense around it to make it look good and dust and whatnot, but really being able to mess with the integrity of a building is a very tempting proposition. So it was very exciting going in, and there was bits where we had a sequence in the old toilets. I think in the I'm going to say it was in the North Stand, where we got to blow them up for real. And again, it's strange not to have to consider keeping it intact and being able to go back there. Like that's normally the main thing when it comes to explosions, is like make it safe, make it, you know, don't do any damage. Whereas this was like, go ahead, do loads of damage. So it was exciting, and it adds something real though. Like if you're really able to do that, it adds an authenticity and a richness to the action. Height has a natural, there's this thing with height and vertigo where it not only looks spectacular, but there's an inherent danger at being at height that I think always translates really well on films. And again, especially if it's done for real, it's a great place to set sequences and do things. And so we came up with all these kind of crazy sequences that are going on in and around the stadium, and the rooftop was one of the ones where we got where we had an awful lot of fun and some really interesting stunt work. But from a personal perspective, I think one of the reasons I feel like heights are effective is because I'm scared of them too. So going up there, probably the hardest thing to film was like up on the rooftop, and we're on this kind of what is really a thin tin rooftop, which we kind of made safe with reinforcements and things, but it didn't feel like it because it looked like the real thing. So it was nerve-wracking to be up there, and I spent a good couple of weeks, 3 weeks up there in total of shooting and doing all these things, and it was a scary place to film, but I think we kind of captured it in a good way that kind of translates. But yeah, because we did everything for real and we were doing that for real, it was kind of terrifying being up there. It was kind of educational for me because I used to support, for a limited time when I was younger, I'd supported like Darlington and Middlesbrough in the northeast of England, and kind of dipped my toe into the water of following football. But coming from Manchester, I have all my friends are like pretty fanatical about football, mostly either City or United fans, and doing this film was kind of an exposure to that world for me in a heavy way, because going into the film, one of the ways that we filled out the stadium is, again, part of the jigsaw puzzle of putting this film together was, right, we went there with the two last games that were taking place at the stadium. And so we went there with kind of 7 cameras and shot essentially the audience, in and around the audience, from pretty much every single angle you could shoot them, so that we had plate shot elements to put in. And going into that, I had to kind of know where I was going to shoot a scene from. So if I'm going to shoot kind of the exchange scene on the rooftop and it's looking that way down at the stand, we knew that we had to film the camera position from up there and get it as close as we can to that, so that when it came to kind of layering the film together in the end, we could place that in the right spot. So we kind of had this very technically headachy process of trying to kind of pre-shoot the film from the different areas, and it was tough, but in the end it was so worth it, and that's one of the ways we populated the stadium with everyone in it. And it's kind of really nice that the stadium in the movie is populated with the people from the last 2 games at the stadium. I really hope the film will translate to a female audience. Like, I do think that at the heart of the film, it's about Danny, a 15-year-old girl who has recently lost her father, and it's her story that ties everything together, and that really explores the theme of sacrifice. And I think, and it's through Danny really that we experience a lot of the movie. So I don't think, and also, I'm not a football fanatic, and I love the movie. It's not, I mean, the football doesn't push me away. It kind of embraces into it. So I don't think anyone who doesn't like football, for example, will not like the movie. I think they will. And I think in terms of female-male audience split, I think the heart of it is what attracts me as a filmmaker. So hopefully that translates through for an audience watching the film. There's a few violent moments, so I know when my wife's watching it, she'll probably be cross that I deep fried a guy's head at part of it. But other than that, it's quite hopefully it's a universal story that appeals to everyone. What I wanted to make as a film is to embrace the fun of the movie. You know what I mean? It's a lot of fun. And it's not. I think tonally, I think with the world today, with everything that's gone on in the world today, we all want a bit of escapism. Do you know what I mean? We all want to go and enjoy a movie and kind of bask in it, but it offers us something, an alternative, not alternative reality as such, but just an escape from everything that's going on in the world. And I hope that it brings some joy to people. Is the truth, that it's fun and enjoyable, and the issues it deals with at the heart of it are that they're heartfelt. They're coming from a real place, and I hope people take that away from it. But of course, they can enjoy. I think as an audience, do you know what I mean? It's a rich action movie with all kinds of craziness going on, where there's a lot of action, violence, suspense, tension, explosions, guns, vehicles, helicopters. It's and a little bit of football in the mix. So I think there's a lot. It's got a lot to offer.